You know how these things work, Annika. The executives want someone who can sell the vision, not just someone who wrote the code. Ryan's voice was calm, almost soothing, as if he was doing me a favor by explaining why my hard work wasn't mine to showcase. I sat frozen in the conference room chair, my pulse pounding in my ears. "But it's my project," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been working on it for months." Ryan smiled, that infuriating, patronizing smile he always gave when he thought he was being magnanimous. "And I'll make sure the team gets full credit. You've done amazing work, Annika. But let me handle the presentation. It's what I do best." My name is Annika Sharma. I'm 31 years old, and I've been a software engineer at Advantech Solutions for 8 years. I'm good at my job. At least, that's what my performance reviews and the constant stream of problems sent my way suggest. But if you ask the higher-ups at the company, they'd probably struggle to even recognize me. You see, I'm not the loudest person in the room. I hate interrupting people, and I rarely fight for attention. My parents always taught me that humility and hard work would eventually be recognized. My dad loved to say, "Don't shout your success from the rooftops. Let others sing your praises for you." That advice worked well enough in school, but in the corporate world, I'd quickly learned that silence didn't bring applause. It brought invisibility. Still, I wasn't bitter about it. Not really. I loved my work. Building things from scratch, solving problems, and creating something that people could use felt like magic. I wasn't chasing accolades. I just wanted to make something great. That's what kept me at my desk late into the night, long after the rest of my team had gone home. I didn't mind skipping a few Friday dinners or sacrificing sleep for a project I believed in. And this project? I'd believed in it with everything I had. 3 months ago, our company announced plans to overhaul its client interface system. It was a massive undertaking, something that could redefine how Advantech worked with its partners. The CTO, David Chen, had called it a moonshot project, and everyone wanted a piece of it. Ryan, as our team leader, held a meeting to brainstorm ideas. I'd been sitting at my desk during my lunch breaks, sketching ideas and researching trends for weeks by then. When it was my turn to present, I stood up nervously, clutching my laptop. My idea was simple but ambitious. A cutting-edge application that integrated artificial intelligence to make client interactions seamless and personalized. As I spoke, I felt the room grow quiet, people leaning in slightly to see my mock-ups. Even Ryan, who usually scrolled on his phone during team meetings, was paying attention. "This is interesting," he said finally, nodding slowly. "Very interesting." For Ryan, that was practically a standing ovation. He assigned me to lead the development immediately, and for the first time in years, I felt like my work might actually make a difference. The next few months were a blur of late nights, endless coffee, and endless lines of code. I poured everything into the application, designing, debugging, and testing every feature until it was flawless. My desk became a battlefield of sticky notes and empty snack wrappers. But I didn't mind. It felt like my moment. Ryan checked in occasionally, usually with vague questions like, "How's it coming along?" or, "Do you need anything from me?" At the time, I thought he was just giving me space to work. I didn't realize he was keeping his distance to protect himself when the time came to take credit. By the time the project was finished, I'd created something I was truly proud of. The application wasn't just functional, it was intuitive, elegant, and revolutionary. I even embedded a subtle signature in the code, a string of unique markers that only I could identify. It was my way of leaving a personal stamp on something I'd built from the ground up. 2 weeks before the internal demo, Ryan called an impromptu meeting. He'd been unusually quiet about the project lately, and I assumed he wanted to go over final adjustments. Instead, he dropped the bombshell. "So," he began, glancing around the room, "we're all set for the presentation next week. I'll be presenting on behalf of the team." I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "Wait," I said slowly. "You're presenting?" "Of course," Ryan replied smoothly. "It's my job as the team leader. Don't worry, Annika, I'll make sure the team gets recognition." "But," I started, my voice faltering. "I've been working on this project for months. I know it better than anyone. Exactly, he said, cutting me off. You've done incredible work, and I can't thank you enough. But the execs don't want technical jargon. They want someone who can sell the big picture. Trust me, it's better this way. The room was silent. I looked around at my colleagues, hoping someone might back me up, but no one met my eyes. Most of them hadn't been directly involved in the project, and probably didn't want to risk rocking the boat. I wanted to argue, to demand what was rightfully mine, but the words wouldn't come. I nodded stiffly and left the room, my stomach churning with anger and frustration. That evening, I called Maya. She was in the middle of choosing centerpieces for her wedding, but she dropped everything when she heard the quiver in my voice. What happened? She asked sharply. I told her about the meeting, my words spilling out in a rush of anger and disbelief. He's stealing it, Maya. All of it. He's going to stand up there and take the credit for everything I've done. That slimy bastard, she muttered. You can't let him get away with this. What can I do? I asked, my voice cracking. He's the team leader. Everyone listens to him. No one will believe me. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Do you have proof? The question hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. Slowly, a plan began to form in my mind. Ryan's internal presentation was the first of many humiliations. As I sat in the corner of the packed conference room, arms crossed tightly over my chest, I watched him dazzle the department heads. He clicked through slides filled with mock-ups I had created, his voice smooth and confident as he explained his vision. This app that I created, he said, gesturing dramatically toward the screen, will revolutionize the way we interact with clients. It's all about creating a seamless experience, one that's intuitive, adaptable, and responsive. That's what I wanted to achieve with this project. I felt the air leave my lungs. What he wanted to achieve. He hadn't written a single line of code. His only contribution was approving my proposal in the first place. My stomach churned as I realized no one in the room would ever know the truth, not unless I told them. But I didn't. I sat there, silent and paralyzed, as the room erupted in applause. Ryan beamed, shaking hands with department heads as they congratulated him. I couldn't bear to meet anyone's eyes as I slipped out of the room. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with every possible outcome if I confronted Ryan. What if I was labeled difficult or ungrateful? What if he twisted the narrative and turned my team against me? I thought about calling my parents, but I already knew what my mom would say. It's just one project, Beta. Let it go. Keep working hard, and you'll get your chance. My dad would agree. You don't want to make enemies at work. Your time will come. The thought made me angrier. I didn't want to wait for my time to come. I wanted to fight for it. But the idea of standing up to Ryan, of challenging someone who held all the power, left me feeling small and powerless. The next morning, Maya cornered me in the break room, her arms crossed and her expression sharp. So, she demanded, what's the plan? I sighed, leaning against the counter. There is no plan. What am I supposed to do, Maya? March into HR and accuse him of theft? They'd laugh me out of the building. Not if you have proof, she said, narrowing her eyes. You said you left a signature in the code, right? Something only you would recognize? Yes, I admitted. But that doesn't mean they'll care. Ryan's the golden boy. Everyone loves him. Maya's expression softened slightly. Look, I get it. This isn't easy. But you can't let him walk all over you, Annika. You deserve better than this. Her words stayed with me for the rest of the day. By the time I got home, I'd made up my mind. If I was going to fight back, I needed to be smart about it. Maya and I met after work that week, huddled in the corner of a small cafe a few blocks from the office. She had her wedding planner spread out on the table, but she shoved it aside as soon as I sat down. Okay, she said, pulling out a notebook. Let's figure this out. What's the best way to prove that you built this app? I hesitated. The signature is the most obvious thing, but I'd need a way to show it publicly. If it's just my word against his in front of HR, it won't go anywhere. Then we make it public, Maya said, her eyes gleaming with determination. When's the next big event where he's showing off your work? I blinked. The tech summit, I said slowly. He's presenting the app there to potential investors. Maya's smile widened. Perfect. That's your moment. Over the next few weeks, we worked on the plan in secret. Maya was relentless, pushing me to rehearse what I'd say and double-check every detail. She made me visualize the moment when I'd reveal the signature, forcing me to confront my fear of speaking up in front of a crowd. What if it backfires? I asked one night, my voice shaking. What if Ryan spins it and makes me look like the bad guy? Then you keep pushing, Maya said firmly. You have the truth on your side, Annika. That's something he can't fake. Despite her encouragement, the stakes weighed heavily on me. Ryan wasn't just my boss. He was well connected with allies in upper management. If I failed, it wouldn't just hurt my career. It would brand me as a troublemaker, someone who couldn't be trusted. At work, I kept up appearances. I nodded politely in meetings, answered Ryan's questions when asked, and smiled through clenched teeth whenever he paraded the app in front of our colleagues. But beneath the surface, I was a bundle of nerves. Every time Ryan mentioned the tech summit, I felt a fresh wave of anxiety. Annika, he said one afternoon, stopping by my desk, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all your hard work on this project. It's been incredible watching it come together. I stared at him, biting back the urge to say something snarky. Thanks, I said stiffly. He grinned. I think this is going to be a big win for the company, and for the team, of course. As he walked away, Maya appeared at my desk, her eyebrows raised. He's laying it on thick, huh? Too thick, I muttered. It's like he knows something's up. Well, let him sweat, Maya said with a shrug. He deserves it. The night before the summit, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours going over the plan, rehearsing what I'd say, and triple-checking the code. My laptop sat open on the desk, the signature glowing on the screen like a lifeline. It was proof that the app was mine, and I was finally ready to show it to the world. When I finally crawled into bed, exhaustion overtook me. But instead of the usual doubts and fears, I felt something different. Hope. The tech summit was everything I'd imagined it would be. Sleek, bustling, and impossibly intimidating. The venue, a towering conference center in the heart of the city, was packed with industry leaders, investors, and journalists. The hum of conversation filled the air, mingling with the faint clatter of keyboards and the soft glow of digital screens. Everywhere I looked, people were networking, exchanging ideas and pitching dreams. And then there was me, fidgeting with the hem of my blazer, clutching my laptop bag like a lifeline, and praying I wouldn't trip over my words when the time came. Relax, Maya whispered, giving my arm a reassuring squeeze. She was here as my +1, claiming she'd needed a break from wedding planning, but I knew she'd cleared her schedule just to be here for me. You've got this. Just stick to the plan. I nodded, though my heart was pounding. Ryan was set to present in less than an hour, and my stomach churned at the thought of sitting through another performance where he paraded my work as his own. But this time would be different. This time, I was ready. The auditorium was massive, with rows of plush seating and a stage flanked by towering screens. I took a seat near the back, tucking myself into the shadows as Ryan walked onto the stage. He was dressed sharply, his movements confident and assured as he approached the podium. Good afternoon, everyone, he began, his voice smooth and commanding. I'm thrilled to be here today to present something truly groundbreaking. Over the past few months, I have been hard at work developing an application that will redefine how our company interacts with clients. The screens behind him lit up with images of the app, my app, and I felt a fresh wave of anger rise in my chest. He launched into his pitch, describing the features and benefits with the ease of someone who'd rehearsed every line to perfection. As you can see, he said, gesturing toward a live demo on the screen, this application is all about creating a seamless, personalized experience. It's adaptable, intuitive, and built to evolve with the needs of our clients. The audience murmured appreciatively, and I gripped the edge of my seat, my nails digging into the fabric. Every word he spoke felt like a punch to the gut. This was my work, my vision, and he was standing there basking in the spotlight like he'd built it himself. I glanced at Maya, who gave me a small nod. It was time. With trembling hands, I opened my laptop and connected to the auditorium's network. I'd spent hours rehearsing this, ensuring every step was flawless. All it took was a few keystrokes, and the live demo on the screen flickered. For a moment, the room was silent, save for the faint hum of the equipment. Then, in bold letters across the bottom of the screen, a message appeared. Developed by Annika Sharma. The murmurs in the audience turned into a collective gasp. Ryan froze mid-sentence, his face paling as he turned to look at the screen behind him. For a moment he seemed confused, as if trying to process what had just happened. "What?" he stammered, spinning back toward the audience. There must be some mistake. I stood up, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself speak, but I forced the words out anyway. "There's no mistake," I said, my voice steady. "The application you're looking at was developed entirely by me." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me as I made my way down the aisle, my laptop clutched tightly to my chest. Ryan stared at me, his expression a mixture of panic and fury. "This project," I continued, my voice growing stronger with each step, "was my idea from the beginning. I designed it, coded it, and tested every feature. And I can prove it." I reached the stage, pulling up the code on my laptop. Embedded in the application is a unique identifier, a digital signature. It's a series of markers I created, something that couldn't be added after the fact. If you look closely, you'll see it signed with my initials. The audience leaned forward, craning to see the screen as I projected the code onto the monitors. Sure enough, the signature was there, glowing brightly for everyone to see. A ripple of murmurs spread through the room, and I could see heads turning, people whispering to each other. Ryan's face was a mask of disbelief. "Annika, what are you doing?" he hissed, his voice low and desperate. "You're making a scene." "No," I said firmly, meeting his gaze. "I'm telling the truth." The next few minutes were a blur. Executives from Advantech rushed to the stage, their faces a mix of confusion and concern. I answered their questions calmly, explaining the signature and my role in the project. The more I spoke, the more the room shifted. What had started as skepticism turned into understanding, and then into something I hadn't felt in months: validation. Ryan tried to salvage the moment, throwing out excuses and claiming he'd overseen the project, but it was clear he'd lost the room. The damage was done. Backstage, Ryan cornered me, his face flushed with anger. "You had no right to do that," he snapped. "Do you have any idea how unprofessional you just looked?" I crossed my arms, meeting his glare with steady eyes. "Unprofessional?" I repeated. "You stole my work, Ryan. I had every right to set the record straight." He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, David Chen appeared, his expression grim. "Ryan," he said, his voice cold, "we need to talk. Now." As David led Ryan away, I felt the tension in my chest begin to ease. Maya appeared at my side, her face lit up with pride. "You were amazing," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. "That was the best thing I've ever seen." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I'd done it. I'd reclaimed my work, my voice, and my dignity. The tech summit concluded in chaos. Ryan disappeared shortly after his backstage meeting with David Chen, leaving a flurry of unanswered questions and speculative whispers in his wake. For the rest of the day, colleagues and attendees stopped me in the hallways, their expressions ranging from surprised to genuinely impressed. "Annika, that was bold," one coworker said cautiously. "I didn't know you had it in you." "I always knew you were talented," another chimed in. "But wow, that took guts." I nodded politely, unsure how to respond. The validation was gratifying, but it didn't erase the months of frustration and self-doubt. If anything, it made me wonder why it had taken such a public display for people to finally see my worth. By the next morning, Ryan's desk was empty. Word spread quickly that he'd been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. If anything, I felt relieved. Relieved that the weight of his shadow was finally gone. David called me into his office that afternoon. He looked tired, as though the events of the summit had aged him overnight. "Annika," he began, gesturing for me to sit. "First, I owe you an apology. We should have caught this sooner." I blinked, surprised. "It wasn't your fault," I said carefully. "Ryan knew how to cover his tracks." David sighed, leaning back in his chair. "That doesn't excuse it. What happened was unacceptable, and I want you to know we're taking steps to ensure it never happens again. As for your work on the application," he hesitated, then offered a small, genuine smile. "You've done something incredible. We want to make sure you get the recognition you deserve." The following week, David stood before the entire company during the all-hands meeting and did something I never thought I'd see. He acknowledged me. Not just in passing, but with a full, detailed account of my contributions to the project. "Annika Sharma single-handedly developed the application that is now setting a new standard for our industry," he said, gesturing toward me as the room erupted in applause. It felt surreal. For so long, I'd been invisible, a quiet worker in the background, overshadowed by louder voices. Now the spotlight was on me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to shy away from it. The company offered me a promotion shortly after, along with the opportunity to lead my next project. At first, I hesitated. Part of me worried that stepping into the spotlight again might invite more scrutiny, or worse, another Ryan. But Maya's voice echoed in my head, "You deserve better than this." And so I accepted. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence, leaning into the parts of myself I'd always been afraid to show. I spoke up more in meetings, reached out to colleagues for feedback, and even started mentoring junior developers. The more I pushed myself, the more I realized that being seen didn't mean being vulnerable. It meant being brave. Months after the summit, life felt different. Not wildly so. I still spent my mornings fighting with my alarm clock and my evenings unwinding with tea and a book. But there was a quiet shift, an undercurrent of confidence that hadn't been there before. At work, I no longer hesitated to share my ideas. In meetings, I raised my hand instead of waiting for someone to call on me. I set boundaries when my workload grew too heavy, and I didn't apologize for taking credit where it was due. It wasn't easy. Decades of staying quiet couldn't be undone overnight, but I was learning, step by step, that my voice mattered. One of the biggest surprises was how my relationships at work changed. Some colleagues, especially those who'd been indifferent to Ryan's antics, were distant at first, unsure of how to approach me. But others, like Maya, rallied around me, becoming more than just coworkers. We celebrated small wins together, shared frustrations over impossible deadlines, and even joked about forming a Team Annika fan club. For the first time, I felt like I belonged, not just in the office, but in my own skin. Personally, the journey had been just as transformative. One Saturday afternoon, my dad called to ask about work. "We saw the article about your app," he said, pride evident in his voice. "Your mom's been showing it to everyone, even the neighbors." I laughed, picturing my mom waving her phone at unsuspecting aunties in the neighborhood. "Thanks, Dad. It's been a lot, but good." He hesitated. "You know, Beta, we've always told you to stay humble, but maybe it's okay to be a little proud too." That simple statement brought tears to my eyes. It felt like permission, not just from him but from myself, to let go of the fear that had held me back for so long. One evening, after a particularly successful project launch, Maya and I sat on a bench outside the office, sharing a bottle of soda like we used to during late nights at work. The city buzzed around us, the sounds of traffic and laughter mixing with the faint glow of streetlights. You did it, Maya said, nudging me with her elbow. You're officially a badass. I laughed. I had a pretty great coach. Her smile softened. Seriously, Annika, I'm proud of you. You fought for yourself, and you won. That's not something everyone can do. I looked at her, my best friend, the person who had believed in me even when I couldn't. Thanks, Maya, for everything. As I walked home that night, I thought about how far I'd come. The girl who had once been too afraid to speak up was gone, replaced by someone stronger, braver, and more willing to take risks. The road ahead wasn't perfect. I knew there would be more challenges, more moments of doubt, but I felt ready for them. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, and it felt like only the beginning.